There are so many deals to be done, so many players on the verge of a move, and every club is looking to strengthen their squad. That means we've got loads to discuss on Good Morning Transfers. Here's what's coming up with our transfer team.
Arsenal have filled for Wilfried Zaha. I'll have the latest from Crystal Palace perspective, and I'll tell you why I think this could go down to the wire.
Big news for Man United fans. Marcus Rashford, of course, has set his new long-term future, but what does that mean for some of his other Man United teammates?
It's all go at Southampton. Shea Adams and Danny Ings are in, while Matt Targett leaves. We'll look at who's next and whether it's time for Saints fans to finally get excited.
Your club today focuses on West Ham. We've seen one new signing already, but could there be more?
We'll also bring you all the breaking deals as they happen. You won't miss a thing. And remember, this is your show, so this is how you can get involved. Make sure you use the hashtag TransferTalk.
Yes, we really want you involved. Remember, we'll read out your tweets and maybe even put some of your questions to our Transfer Talk team. Now, speaking of which, you'll notice that Michael Bridge and Anton Tolui are here. They're asking where the box is. I'm going to show you where it is. It's right here, OK? Because yesterday, remember, we did our predictions, all right? The transfer team put their transfer predictions in. Anton and Michael, we need to quickly get yours in. And remember that on deadline day, we will bring these out and see how they got on.
Look at the concentration in Anton's face.
I like it, man.
I know.
I like it. Welcome back, guys.
He's only had all morning to do it.
All right, hang on.
Pass it over. Remember, we had Alice's there as well yesterday. Oh, yeah. Obvious one. OK, right. Let's leave those there. Not to be open until deadline day. We've actually still got Emma Payton's to come as well, but we will do that before, well, whenever she is next on. Right. OK, there was big developments yesterday, wasn't there, with Arsenal and Wilfried Zaha. We talked about Wilfried Zaha yesterday, but since then, there has been some, well, more than interest from Arsenal. So, Michael Bridge, just bring us up to date.
Yes, so what we know so far, Arsenal have made a £40 million bid for Zaha. I understand that is half what Crystal Palace would be looking at. We've been reporting that Zaha wants to leave Palace, and last night we told you on Sky Sports News that his brother has released a statement that Arsenal would be his dream, and that he supported the club as a boy and he wants to play European football. But now I'm talking to the Crystal Palace perspective here, and the key here is European football. Before the end of last season, there was kind of discussion between Zaha and the club in terms of Zaha potentially playing in the Champions League. That's something that Arsenal currently can't offer. This could get potentially messy. It could even go right up until deadline day. A few elements here as well. Wilfried Zaha is currently in the African Cup of Nations. This could drag for some time. Zaha wants to stay in London. Also, must remember that when they sold Aaron Wan-Bissaka last week for a deal going up to £50 million, Manchester United kept that sell-on clause for Zaha. So I'm predicting it could be quite a big figure if Zaha wants to leave. Another key thing we need to remember as well, Wilfried Zaha signed a new long-term deal at Selhurst Park last season. So Palace, they hold the upper hand. They gave Zaha a long-term contract. I'm fearing this could potentially get messy, everyone.
But it sounds to me, Anton, though, at least Palace, they're not saying he is absolutely 100% not for sale. They're not saying we're not going to entertain any bids. It's more a case of, well, we want more than that.
Rightly so. Surely this is a guy that they are massively dependent on creatively. I mean, look at the rest of the squad. There isn't another player, well, arguably outside the top six, like Wilfried Zaha. That's going to cost you. That's going to cost you that. And he's, you know, a very, very well sought-after player. I'm pretty sure that other clubs in the top six have had a look around at Wilfried Zaha. Arsenal won't be the only club that have done their due diligence on him. Best interest of Palace is to start a bidding war here, surely.
Well, could that happen then, Mark? I mean, we now know that Arsenal's bid, it looks like that's not going to be good enough for Crystal Palace. Other clubs will at least have a better starting point.
I think the biggest thing with the Zaha deal is that it's going to be big money. Whatever happens, whichever club he potentially goes to, or of course stays at Crystal Palace, it's going to take a huge bid to prize him away from a club that he has such an affinity for. And of course the fans absolutely adore him because of what he's achieved, the fact he's come through the system, the academy. So I think there's only going to be a very small number of clubs that will be in for Wilfried Zaha. So a bidding war I don't think will quite happen. It'll be a case of who comes to the table, who puts the money on the table, and of course the chairman's then got to say, this is the right deal for the football club.
Yeah, and JD, we talked about this from Arsenal's perspective yesterday, didn't we? And I think there was an agreement that maybe Arsenal should be targeting a centre-back before they targeting attacking players. But would Zaha still improve Arsenal's team?
Oh yeah,
certainly squad.
100%. If their targets are to improve in terms of the productivity from their forwards, then you have to compare Zaha statistically to what they've got so far. And if you compare him to, let's say, Iwobi, Mkhitaryan, Ozil, and Ramsey, who plays in those sort of positions, he scores way more goals than all of those guys. Respectively, they score 3 to 6, and Zaha scored 10 goals last year. So you can see the impact that he's going to have immediately. But I think what's most important and what's most interesting about it is that Zaha scored 8 goals away from home, and we spoke about Arsenal's poor away form that they had last year, losing more than they actually won. So maybe it's a different sort of tactical approach that Emery's maybe trying to find away from home that Zaha could bring.
And Zaha was man of the match at the Emirates last season, wasn't he, when Palace won?
No better way to sell yourself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. He makes Crystal Palace tick. Aaron Wan-Bissaka came from nowhere. Injuries to Joel Ward, Martin Kelly, and all of a sudden Aaron Wan-Bissaka. What a player, what a right back. But they got decent money for him, £45 million up front. Zaha makes Palace tick, and this is why I think it'll be messy, because Palace will not want to sell, and I know for a fact Steve Parish does not want to sell Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Wilf Zaha this summer.
Well, I think it's really interesting because the way this is going about already, let's just say messy is a good word to describe it, but it's interesting that his brother's coming out and talking. It's not his agent. It's not, so it's, you know, if
it's close enough, right?
Yeah, but if this develops, then it's effectively, you know, look, you know, and he goes to Arsenal. I've always wanted to play. Anyone close to me knows I've always wanted to play for Arsenal.
Naturally.
If it doesn't, this hasn't come from my camp, someone spoke on their own behalf, and he can go anywhere he wants. It's this really interesting sort of dynamic now to this where it makes it even more real.
But it's that modern day we have the player control. When the player turns around and says that they want to do something, or people close to them turn around and indicate they want to do it, we see it every season. Now, players are controlling their destiny so much more. And even though the prices are going up, the players are also, control is going up as well at the same time.
But we know how important Wilfried Zaha is to Crystal Palace, and let's just prove it with these statistics here. If you look at that, 19% of his team goals last season for Crystal Palace, 5 assists and goal involvement as well. And when it comes to a kind of with or without, I mean, they're just much better. Their win percentage proves that they're much better with him in the side as well. And as you've said, Michael, no Wan-Bissaka, who was turning into a key player. And if there's no Wilfried Zaha, that is a lot of work for Roy Hodgson to do this summer.
A monumental loss, Tom. You know, they're all back for pre-season training already. They're about to go all around Europe. It's not what they want. Another key point we need to make here is Wilfried Zaha is still away for the Africa Cup of Nations. He might not be back at Crystal Palace training until August. It's not ideal, and hence me saying every single time it could get messy.
So, Bridget, do you feel like it's going to affect their pre-season routine in terms of them actually being together?
Well, does Roy Hodgson prepare for life with Zaha, or does he start thinking, I need to start thinking elsewhere? It'll be interesting to see over the coming weeks where Palace will be looking in terms of strengthening, because my understanding was they weren't looking to replace Zaha at all. They're looking to get some strikers in, obviously a right back, and maybe beef up that midfield. So I reckon I've got a busy few weeks.
The thing I love about Wilfried Zaha as well, Sir Alex Ferguson signed him.
Yeah.
That's one thing about Zaha. He had that potential, he had that quality, and although it didn't work out at Manchester United, the fact that the great Sir Alex rated him and took him to Old Trafford, that says all you need to know about his quality.
That's very true.
Remember to keep your tweets coming in. It's #TransferTalk. And also, by the way, remember the Transfer Talk podcast as well, available at skysports.com, Acast and iTunes. And actually, we're recording a new one this afternoon as well. So keep those coming in. #TransferTalk.
Yeah, and I'm going to be on that, so it's definitely worth downloading, that's for sure. Let's bring you up to date with some of the state of play on other deals today, and just sticking on the Arsenal theme for a moment, forward Eddie Nketiah has told Sky Sports News he wants to fight for his place at the club next season. The striker scored his first Premier League goal last season, but at the moment, the 20-year-old isn't interested in a loan move. More from that interview on the website skysports.com. Juventus have completed the signing of Adrien Rabiot on a free transfer. We told you on the show yesterday he was in Turin for a medical. He's moved from Paris Saint-Germain. He'll be presented at a news conference this morning. The French international had been linked with a move to the Premier League. Next this morning, Bristol City have signed defender Thomas Callas from Chelsea for a club record £8 million. Callas spent last season on loan at Bristol City, making 41 appearances. He has signed a 4-year contract.
Well, just after we came off air yesterday, there was big news, a big story broke regarding Marcus Rashford. Anton, just bring us up to date.
Yeah, basically, Marcus Rashford has signed a new contract at Manchester United. He'll be with the club until 2023 with an option for another year as well. And we understand his wages every week will be worth at least £200,000 a week. So for me, I think this changes everything we know about Marcus Rashford and how we talk about Marcus Rashford, because we usually use the word if a lot with Marcus Rashford. It's always the potential we talk about with Marcus Rashford. Now, Manchester United are basically saying, he's our guy. He's our #1 striker. He's the guy that's going to get us the goals next season. So he's going to be paid like one of the highest earning strikers in world football. Do the stats necessarily say he is that guy at the moment? And I'd kind of say he was kind of underwhelming last season. 10 goals in the Premier League. That's joint 25th in the Premier League last season. And look, Rashford's what? He's pace, he's dynamism, he's athleticism. So what? He expected to take on defenders. Well, he's only 41st in the number of dribbles per game last season. That's not good enough. 23rd in the fouls, created. He's not creating enough problems for defenders. Yes, United struggled. Yes, he's young. Yes, he's English, and we should all be excited. But I don't think it's wrong to ask for more from Marcus Rashford.
You're missing it.
The more you talk, you're not going to stop JD until
you're missing it.
I've got one more stat, right?
I'll let you go, man.
Right, so, obviously, like I said, he finished joint 25th in the Premier League in scorers last season, but he was 9th in the number of shots, right? So he's having the chances. Fifth, the only statistic he actually sort of gets near the top of is the number of big chances missed, where he's 5th in the Premier League. Rashford needs to up his game if he's going to be this #1 striker that Man United are paying the money for.
And breathe.
Wait. Now, I love Anton. You know what I love Anton? Because Anton always does the deeper research and looks into things as it should be done.
To prove you wrong.
Of course. But let me tell you what the angle you didn't see. It's the culture. And the culture of Marcus Rashford signing for Man United, what it does now on the first day of pre-season going back, it ignites all of those youngsters that look up to him. The Mason Greenwoods, the Angel Gomez, the Roshan Williams, they'll all come into pre-season and say, I want to prove a point. We've seen Ollie go into that club and turn around and say, I want to change the whole culture of this club. I want to make this back what, when I came to Man United, what it was about. It was about bringing you through. It was about being united. It was about playing for the shirt. And you're going to get that out of the youngsters.
I get that. I completely understand. And
so making a star out of one of their biggest idols.
I'm not saying don't pay the guy, don't give up on talent, and back the players that you've come through your system. That's what Man United haven't done.
Of course.
That I agree with. My point is though, if you're paying that much money, and United made this mistake before, they've thrown money at other players and they haven't had the production for it. And that, if Ollie's at the wheel, Marcus Rashford could stall the car and eventually, basically get him broken down because if he doesn't score, United don't go up the table and Ollie loses his job.
Well, no, because if he doesn't perform, if he doesn't start the season well, they do still have Romelu Lukaku, and if they do sell Romelu Lukaku, they will probably replace him as well. There will be competition for Rashford. I want to go back to something you said, JD, and I'll pick it up with you, Mark. You said about the youngsters seeing Marcus Rashford and saying, this is the club for me, that's my pathway. I can improve. And one of them is young Mason Greenwood, who it does appear might get a chance this season. Let's say, I know Alexis Sanchez can play there, so can Anthony Martial. Let's say Rashford's first choice and Lukaku or another is second choice. Mason Greenwood might be third choice striker. And that is coming through the academy and actually following Marcus Rashford's path, which is, again, a good example to set to this academy that used to be so good and can be again.
Absolutely. No, JD makes a really valid point. And you talk about the culture at Manchester United, you talk about the great days and the great teams, and of course everyone mentions the class of '92. And Mason Greenwood could be one of those players that comes through the system once again and excites the fans. You look at his debut, he was 17 years old.
Of course.
And he made his debut for Manchester United in Paris, in the Champions League, in that famous win over PSG. He then played 3 Premier League games after that. You get the feeling that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was just trying to ease him into the setup. But that's exactly the type of player that you want coming through the system and pushing the likes of Marcus Rashford, because those types of players excite fans.
So, Michael, do you think this pushes Alexis Sanchez or pushes him further towards the exit door?
Well, again, another player at the Copa America, isn't it? And it was interesting to see that he'd scored. Look, we've spoken about this in production meetings, haven't we? It's difficult because he's on such a high wage at Manchester United. If you get him firing, I hate the expression like and you sign him, but it would be like that, wouldn't it? He's still a top player. We don't know if there's been issues or anything in terms of Alexis. It's not the Arsenal Alexis Sanchez we were used to seeing. When he joined Manchester United, I remember the Twitter video, him playing on the piano. Everyone was excited. It looked a no-brainer for Manchester United, really, didn't it? For some reason, it hasn't worked out. But wouldn't it be a massive boost for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who needs to strengthen other areas, if he gets an Alexis Sanchez, who's playing well for Chile, firing in the Premier League?